Hey, welcome to The Explainer. So today, we're going to do something a little different. We're taking this 2,000-year-old story about two men in a temple, and we're going to treat it like a modern psychological case study. And what you're about to see is just how much this ancient parable is a startlingly relevant diagnosis of our own time.
Yeah, this quote right here, it just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? It's that smug, self-satisfied voice inside your head. You know the one that pats you on the back for eating a salad while you're kind of judging the person next to you ordering fries. That's the voice of comparison. And as we're about to find out, it's a really, really old problem with a very modern face.
So we're looking at this parable, but not as some dusty old religious text. Think of it more like a masterclass. Yeah, a field guide for spotting what you might call spiritual narcissism, the very human, very sneaky tendency we all have to use our goodness, our virtues, as a kind of weapon or maybe a status symbol.
Okay, so to really get this, you have to picture it. Let's set the scene. Imagine you're in the middle of Jerusalem, right at the temple, during the hour of prayer. I mean, this place is bustling. It's the absolute center of spiritual life. And into this sacred space walk two men, and they could not be more different.
And the contrast between these two guys, wow, it is just stark. On one side, you've got the Pharisee. He's the cultural gold standard, right? The guy who does everything by the book. He walks right up to the front, bold as anything, and basically prays about himself. It's like he's handing God a resume of his accomplishments. Then on the other side, you have the tax collector. And in that culture, he was seen as a traitor, a sinner, basically the lowest of the low. He's hiding way in the back, can't even bring himself to look up, and he's beating his chest in this gesture of just profound, total brokenness.
So the story sets up this incredible tension, right? But look, we're not just here to retell an old story. We want to get under the hood and understand the why. So let's start unpacking the psychology of this better-than mindset that the Pharisee has going on.
So way back in 1954, a psychologist named Leon Festinger basically gave a name to what this Pharisee was doing. He called it social comparison theory, and it's a fundamental human drive. It's this idea that we figure out our own worth, how good we are, how smart, how successful, by looking at the people around us. We just can't help it. We need a benchmark, a yardstick to measure ourselves against, and all too often that yardstick is somebody else.
And this right here, this is the theory in action. This is the Pharisee's actual prayer. And just notice, his focus isn't really on God, is it? It's all about his ranking compared to other people. He's using what psychologists call downward social comparison. He's pumping up his own spiritual ego by pointing out how much better he is than all those other guys, and especially that guy over there in the back.
And believe me, this isn't just some ancient philosophy. Modern science is all over this. Academics actually have a term for it: spiritual superiority. And often it's a form of what's called a spiritual bypass, using spiritual practices and beliefs to avoid dealing with your own real, messy human problems. In fact, a 2020 study found a direct link between people who claim they're enlightened and, you guessed it, high levels of narcissism. So here's the bottom line. The Pharisee wasn't really there to connect with God. He was there to admire his own reflection.
And look, this kind of thing wasn't happening in a vacuum. Historically, there was this whole known practice of what you could call ostentatious piety. We're talking about things like fasting, just so people would notice how skinny you looked, or wearing these oversized religious symbols almost like spiritual bling. It was holiness, but as a performance art.
And let's just be honest, this is the perfect modern analogy, right? It's the first century equivalent of putting the word humble in your Instagram bio. It's that performative humility we see everywhere online. It's a way of signaling virtue without actually having to possess it. The technology has changed, for sure, but that human impulse to broadcast our own goodness, it's exactly the same.
Okay, so we've pretty much diagnosed the problem with the Pharisee, but now the story takes this fascinating turn. We're going to shift our focus from the sickness of being self-righteous to the surprising, almost shocking power that's found in the tax collector's brokenness.
Which brings us to the central question of this whole parable, really. Why does the broken guy win? I mean, on paper, the Pharisee has it all. He follows all the rules, he's respected, he's the model citizen. The tax collector, he's a total mess. So why on earth is he the hero of this story? What is it about his posture of brokenness that unlocks something so powerful?
Well, a big part of the answer can be found in this really cool ancient concept called penthos. It was a term used by early Christian mystics, and it means a joy-creating sorrow. I know, it sounds like a total contradiction, right? But it's not despair. It's that profound, gut-level, and ultimately freeing realization of your own imperfection. It's the moment you finally stop pretending.
And what's just incredible to me is how modern science totally backs up this ancient wisdom. Positive psychology, it tells us that relational humility is a huge predictor of mental health. Sociology, with researchers like Brené Brown, it shows that vulnerability is the birthplace of connection and real change. Even neurobiology gets in on it, revealing that admitting you're not perfect can actually lower the stress hormones in your body.
Let's break that down for a second. The Pharisee is in this constant state of what we could call identity maintenance. He has to keep up this performance of being perfect, and that is neurobiologically exhausting. It keeps stress hormones like cortisol jacked up all the time. But the tax collector, when he drops the facade, when he just admits he's a mess, he experiences this physiological release. His brain and his body can finally stop pretending, and that is the freedom of raw honesty.
Okay, so we've met the characters, we've picked apart the psychology, we've even looked at the science behind it all. Now, let's bring it all home. Let's see what this ancient story has to say about our lives, right here in the 21st century.
Because the story ends with a total bombshell. It's the tax collector, not the Pharisee, who went home justified. Now, the Greek word that's used here, dikaio, is so powerful. It doesn't just mean forgiven. It means made right, or put in a right relationship. Think about that. The man who admitted he was all wrong was the one who was ultimately made right.
And this is why this matters so much right now. We are absolutely swimming in a culture of performance. I mean, from the nonstop hustle culture on LinkedIn to the perfectly curated lives on Instagram with all those #blast hashtags, we are constantly being invited to pray the Pharisees' prayer. God, I thank you that I am more successful, more mindful, more woke than them. And really what this whole story boils down to is a contrast between two completely opposing worldviews. The Pharisee sees life as a ladder. It's a competition. You climb by pushing others down, and you use your goodness as a weapon to prove you're higher up. But the tax collector, he's on the floor. He sees life not as a competition, but as a shared reality. Everybody starts on the same ground. And for him, his brokenness isn't a weapon, it's a bridge that connects him to other people and to grace. And that brings us to the ultimate outcome of their two different approaches. The Pharisee left the temple exactly as he entered it, completely full of himself. But the tax collector, he left empty of himself, which meant he actually had room to be filled with something real. So, as we wrap up, this is the question the parable leaves us with. And it's a big one. When we approach our life, our spirituality, or even just that quiet inner voice in our heads, what is it? Is it a mirror, where we're just looking for a reflection of our own awesomeness? Or is it a plea, an honest, raw admission that we're imperfect and we need something more than just ourselves? It's an ancient question with a deeply modern urgency.